听专家解读美国升学方案，看美国学习生活点滴，圆美国名校梦想。本节目由美国文美教育集团冠名播出。
文美集团是美国著名的大学申请及规划辅导机构，20年规划经验，在美国洛杉矶、纽约、芝加哥等12个城市设有服务中心，为广大华人子女提供教育服务。文美集团专注于美国大学升学规划服务，教育学博士加常春藤名校面试官顾问团队，中美双顾问模式，为6到12年级学生提供最好、最全方位的教育服务。欢迎大家扫码或者是直接搜索关注文美集团的微信公众号美国文美，及时了解最新最全的美国升学资讯。如果想跟文美的客服互动，请在节目播出期间扫描屏幕左下角的文美客服二维码，或者直接搜索微信号文美集团的全拼音添加。文美的咨询热线是1888-789-0942。好的，下面我们会邀请文美集团的美籍顾问康奈尔大学的面试官 Mr. Pierre 为大家来分享如何来申请康奈尔大学。所以这个万博士，其实对于申请康奈尔大学来说，面试官是不是给出我们的一些建议，或者您了解的是跟这个我们所想象的不太一样的？
对的，美国有一句非常经典的话叫We want you， 是吧？美国招聘大兵的时候叫 We want you，还有另外一句话叫 Inside out， 是吧？那么所以这个Mr. Pierre 呢，这个就是这样的一个人哈。那么你看我呢，给大家做宣讲的时候，我的一些经验来自于在给大家做申请的时候跟学校的接触总结出来的一些经验，这是一个外行人去研究它的一个角度。那么Mr. Pierre 呢，他作为在这个整个招生体系里边的一个部分，那他是站在校方的一个视角去考虑问题。他面试了一个学生之后，他呢要写报告，要发给学校的招生委员会来做这样的这个决定哈。所以他跟这个招生委员会的这个接触呢就更加的密集啊。当然他不能直接做决定，所以呢这样的一个视角呢，其实也是我们在整个服务里边想达到的一个效果，就是叫中美双视角的这么一个模式啊。那当然我们服务的很多孩子是美国出生长大，本身中文也不太好，是吧？那我的英文又不太好，是吧？所以呢，我呢就用我们就是这种中西合璧的方式来给孩子做规划。那么我呢有中国视角，我最了解我们家长需求，孩子的咱们本地华人孩子的生存生长状况、家庭背景。那么他呢更多的是从我大学想要什么的角度上来给你进行辅导。所以这就是我刚才说的换位思考，我们想要什么，学校想要什么，这两个角度我们都要有这样的话呢才能够达到我们最强的一个竞争力。所以希望这个 Mr. Pierre 今天给大家的这个分享呢，能够给大家带来一些帮助。
是的，谢谢万博士啊，谢谢万博士给我们带来美国的视角，这让我想起了一句话哈，就是这个中国有句古话叫朝中有人好办事，就是我们要通过这个内部的他们的一些分析和讲解，来帮助我们这个想去申请康奈尔大学的同学们哈，去真正的了解大学需要什么，您需要准备什么，然后这样的话可能才会让我们的这个申请更加的这个顺利。好，下面我们请皮埃尔先生为大家来分享。
Hi everyone, this is Pierre Rodriguez for WinMay. Today's topic is applying to Cornell University, some insights from a former interview officer. So part of what I did, including this year, since I graduated as a way to keep in touch with my school, is college interviews. So for the Miami area, I would meet with students either virtually or in person, conduct a college interview, and ask questions and open conversation about Cornell, get to know the student a little bit more, and at the end of everything, I needed to file a report and answer specific questions given to me by Cornell University, and then send it off to them, and later on they would include that in their consideration of the student. I myself graduated from Cornell University in 2011. I studied economics and computer science. So this is coming from someone that graduated from Cornell University, but also someone that conducted the college interviews, which I think could make a difference, as well as, you know, the usual basics like academics, including things like GPA and class rank and SAT score and extracurriculars. This is a little bit more specialized, and I would say even more difficult to come by. It's information that you would only get from someone that has the experience that I do, for instance, in conducting the interviews. Okay, so what I wanted to do first is go over what types of questions were asked of me regarding how the interview went. So you'll get an inside look into what types of questions Cornell University wanted to know with regard to the student. So let me just pull that up. Okay, so the idea is that by now, the student would have already submitted their grades, their test scores, their extracurriculars, and everything like that. So the interview is not so much focused on those aspects. It's more focused on passions and pursuits, interests, engagement, and things like that, which we'll see shortly. Okay, so just reading off here, the report had asked for additional information. Please respond to the prompts below whenever possible. Provide specific examples from your conversation to support observations, quotes, paraphrase, etc. Be impartial when describing this interaction as much as possible. Recount what was said. Devote approximately 2 to 3 sentences for each response. And now the questions. So this is obviously something that you would do after the meeting, and you would have to recall certain things so you can take notes during the meeting, and the student can also ask questions if they want regarding Cornell. So first category would be interest and awareness. In what ways did the candidate express interest in and knowledge of Cornell and the school program major to which they applied? So this is basically saying that you should do your homework. When you're going to be doing college interviews, you want to express that you do have interest and knowledge in the particular school. In this case, we're talking about Cornell University. So in my case, I talked about wanting to major in astrophysics, and I know that they had an observatory on campus. So I talked about doing research. I cited specific professors, specific programs. For example, if you know, Carl Sagan was a professor at Cornell University at one point. Very famous cosmologist and physicist. So that would be the first thing that they're going to look for. So that's definitely going to tell you that you should be doing your homework. You should be researching the school. You should be prepared. They're going to tell by how, I guess, the types of questions that you ask and things like that. Okay, next would be passions and pursuits. Which academic and extracurricular topic was of greatest interest to the student during high school? Does the student plan to pursue this interest while in college? For example, a favorite class, project, or activity, formative academic or extracurricular experience, long-term academic or professional goal. So here, this is something that's more intangible than, say, how they did in a specific class. For a student, this would be how passionate they are about learning. So that's where this is going to be most salient. This is where you're going to be able to express that and communicate that to the interviewer. In this case, you would imagine to be me. So I need to see that you're passionate about your interests, whether they're academic or extracurricular. You need to show me that you're motivated to do really well and excel in whatever it is that you do, and that needs to be present in the way you describe it in your accomplishments. So that's where the conversation would go at that point. The next category would be engagement. How does a student say he or she will benefit from and contribute to Cornell's intellectual and social communities? So this is really important. To put it crudely, they aren't necessarily looking for robots. Let's say students that just dedicate themselves to studying, they want to have a feeling of an intellectual and social community. And part of that is participating in events and clubs and activities, also contributing, giving back to the community, being socially conscious and aware of one's presence and influence with regards to others and the position that they're in. So this is going to be more for what type of things can you do to stay in touch with the community, to consider how your place at Cornell has a potential impact in the surrounding community. Part of what I would say my impact was included when I had work study, for example, and I got to know some people that lived in Ithaca, which is where Cornell is at. So I got to get to know like what types of lives they lead, you know, what are the things that they do, their aspirations and things like that. So you formed friendships from there and also connections. And in terms of the intellectual component, you also want to make sure that the student is going to be excited about things that are intellectual, because Cornell is a very intellectual place. And that's what makes it so great. You're talking about people that represented their countries, you know, in mathematical Olympiads. You're talking about some of the best minds in the world on campus. And so you have to be able to be comfortable in that environment, but also realize that you do fit in, that you are part of that intellectual community. And then the last part, which is optional, is other information. And it says, please provide any supplemental information from your conversation that is not on the application but would be useful to admissions and does not fit under any one of the previous prompts. So this is going to be outside of the scope of the other things that we talked about, but it's one of those things that you would say, for example, after meeting someone, interviewing a student, that you stay thinking about that specific characteristic of their personality. In other words, as a student, you want to be unique, you want to stand out, you want to be memorable. And to do that, I would highly recommend learning more about yourself, mastery of self, knowing what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. You don't want to make it seem like all your responses are prepared, for instance. You want to be able to let the conversation flow with the college interviewer. But at the same time, you should know yourself. And in knowing yourself, you're going to be able to present yourself in the best way possible. And apart from these tips with regard to the college interview, which is, I would say, a very important part of the admissions process, I would also advise you to spend a lot of time on the college essays. I feel that college essays are a great opportunity to express not only your mastery of language, but also your writing skills and also any other experiences that you might have had that are worthy of mentioning. And the last thing I wanted to say was, since it is an Ivy League, of course, you need to excel in order to increase your chances of making it to Cornell. So you want to put in the time to take honors classes, AP classes, IB classes, dual enrollment courses, which are, you know, university courses, college courses. You want to do really well on standardized tests like the SAT, ACT, PSAT. Before, they even used to have a requirement of 3 SAT 2 subject tests. But after COVID, that was changed. So I would say that it's still very competitive. You know, the admissions rate is always getting lower and lower as more people are applying, but also as more competitive people are applying. So it's getting more difficult to get in. Cornell University is famously said to be the Ivy League that's easiest to get into. And I would say that's part of that is because of its size. It has the most largest undergraduate class size, I'd say, like entering freshmen. And it is also the hardest one to stay in. So that would be due to the academics. And Cornell is famously one of the hardest, if not the hardest, Ivy League, because at the other Ivies, we have something called grade inflation. Whereas at Cornell, we have grade deflation, which is the opposite. And that's what I would say you need to do, but really just pursue your passion. not only pursue it, but also be able to communicate that passion. That's really important as well. And I feel like if you take those things into consideration, things that we mentioned in this video, you should be able to do really well, especially when you have to, for example, fill out your supplemental essays. I feel like that's part of the reason why I also got into Cornell. Apart from everything else, I feel like I did a really good job on my essays. I was able to express how my passion for, let's say, astrophysics started when I was like in 6th or 7th grade, really. And I dealt with reading, about Big Bang Theory and cosmology when I was in 6th or 7th grade. Like, I would live in the library. And that's where my passion developed for all things Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein. And, just expressing that passion and developing that passion and exploring that. Those are the things that will help you, as well as preparedness. So those are the things that we talked about when we talked about the types of things that they're going to be going into the college interview. So that's it for today. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
感谢皮埃尔先生给我们的分享哈，所以我们希望呢，这个皮埃尔先生给大家的分享可以帮助到我们想这个申请康奈尔大学的同学们。当然，有任何的问题呢，我们还是建议大家直接来咨询文美集团，因为他们现在有这个中美的双顾问的模式，相信一定可以帮到大家。文美集团是美国著名的大学申请及规划辅导机构，20年规划经验，在美国洛杉矶、纽约、芝加哥等12个城市设有服务中心，为广大华人子女提供教育服务。文美集团专注于美国大学升学规划服务，教育学博士加常春藤名校面试官顾问团队，中美双顾问模式，为6到12年级学生提供最好、最全方位的教育服务。欢迎大家扫码或者是直接搜索关注文美集团的微信公众号“美国文美”，及时了解最新最全的美国升学资讯。如果想跟文美的客服互动，请在节目播出期间扫描屏幕左下角的文美客服二维码，或者直接搜索微信号文美集团的全拼音添加。文美的咨询热线是1888-789-0942。还是感谢万博士和皮埃尔先生给我们带来今天这样的一期节目，那么希望能够帮助到大家了解更多，也希望我们的同学们可以申请到自己心仪的大学。感谢您今天的收看，我们下期再见。